What's up YouTube, DUEL here from Zephyr War Games, and today we are bringing you a live action duel involving the two brand new meta decks, Tearlaments and Sprights. Now you'll see in this duel exactly what the decks can do. It's absolutely insane. So we're going to kick it off. We've got Rob at the top playing Tearlaments and myself on the bottom playing Sprights. We start off with Siren, who discards a card from the hand, special summons herself, and then mills the top 3 cards of the deck. In doing so, he's been able to mill Mary, and Mary's effect, or the same as all the other Tearlaments, is if they are sent via card effect, they will trigger to shuffle the materials from the grave, field, or hand back into the deck to perform a fusion summon. So in doing so, what he's been able to do with King of the Swamp is you can use that as a card listed on a card in the extra deck. So for example, Alistair the Invoker for Kaliga. Or I believe there is another one. Millennium Eyes Restrict, or Relinquish, sorry, for Millennium Eyes Restrict. He's going to use it as an aqua to go into Kit Kalos. Kit Kalos on summon lets you add a Tearlaments card. So you can search out Reinhardt, you can search out any of the trap cards. The only thing you can't search out, annoyingly, is the field spell, which would have been broken. So he's decided to search out Reinhardt. He hasn't conducted a normal summon yet. Reinhardt or normal or special, which is exactly what he's going to do, sends a Tearlament from the deck to the graveyard. So as long as he sends one that hasn't triggered its graveyard effect, which he does in the form of Never, I believe it is. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head in front of me. But basically, again, that will then trigger to spin itself back and perform a fusion summon, which he does with the Kit Kalos, making Drax Tepelia. He then overlays the Rhino Heart with the Siren, and that goes into Time Thief Redoer. And the reason people play Time Thief Redoer in this deck is the fact that it detaches as effect rather than as cost, meaning that when he detaches during my turn, he will trigger both the effects of Rhino Heart to come back and Siren to fusion summon. He's going to use the effect of Time Thief Redoer in the standby phase, and I decide to my hand's kind of good. Like, it's very, this is the go second build, so I've got like Gamma. So I was like, I'll Gamma the Redoer. Yes, it will still trigger. He'll still be able to chain to trigger the 2, but what this does is it forces them. He can't make a fusion monster that is going to be interactive with me. And what I mean by that is he can't make Drakus Tepelia because he hasn't got a fusion monster on the board. He can't make like the Kaleido Heart because he hasn't got enough materials. So the best thing he's probably going to be able to make is like the Kit Kalos. And then the Kit Kalos can then send to fuse. And basically what I'm doing is I'm making him do all of his effects before I put any meaningful monsters on the board. And then that will allow me to continue to keep building. So he's going to activate the Shiren's effect, which again just lets him fuse. So he can spin back materials from the graveyard, hand, or field. Now, in this exact moment in time, he's only got Reinhardt and the Shiren anyway. So the best thing he can do is put those both back and go into a Kit Kalos. Now obviously the Kit Kalos will trigger on summon, and that will then allow him to search out or send a Tearlament. By doing so, he could then send another one, which he does, which is the Meryl and Merrily. I keep getting those wrong, but apologies. And he can put the Kit Kalos back, and then he puts the Merrily back, and then he sets up with double Drakus Tepelia. And Drakus Tepelia is actually really dangerous against Sprights, which you'll see as we play this game, because it turns them into level 1s, meaning that all of their effects to special in the hand or all of their effects to go into rank 2s are null and voided, which is obviously very, very damaging. And this is the one thing that the Tearlaments can do incredibly well, is they're quite like Flunders, is they can play just as much during your turn as they do during their own turn. And it's kind of like one of the ones that once the chain has started, it doesn't stop until they've pretty much finished. So he's still got one of the trap cards set, I believe, or I assume that the back row is either Imperm or one of the trap cards. So I special summon down Jet because I'm control level 2 in the form of Gamma, which is also another reason why the deck plays this. Attempt to trigger Jet's effect, and he activates the first Drakus Tepelia, making it a level 1. I believe this is the moment where I consider going into a rank 2, and then it reminds me that Jet's a level 1, not a level 2, and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So yeah, that's definitely something you will get used to as you play the games or as you face the games. That either adapting the Sprights levels. The spell card is starter, by the way. Apologies, I didn't move my cards far enough up on the mat to see everything. So starter is you special summon a Spright from the deck, and then you take damage equal to its attack. So summon out Spright Blue. Attempt to trigger Spright Blue's effect, which will let me search for a Spright monster, and then he Draxitopelias that as well. And it's kind of like, stop it! This is where I attempt to overlay, and he just goes, whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing? It's a level 1. I was like, oh yeah. Everything with a Predaplant counter becomes a level 1. I was like, god damn it. So I kind of wanted to maintain everything I had. Like, I've got normal summons and everything, and I really didn't want to do them. I can't remember what this spell called. Oh, this spell's Prosperity, I believe. So I'm just digging for a starter. I've gone for the 6. Again, apologies. I will remember next time to put the 6 further up. But it's basically a Jet, a Gamma, a Prosperity, and then I think I find a Swap Frog in that. And the rest go back to the bottom of the deck. So, yeah, it was a Swap Frog. So I normally summon the Swap Frog, attempt to use his effect of Foolish Burial. And he just has so many stops. It's like Imperm. It's like, okay then. Return Swap to the hand, because obviously it's cost. Ditch a dupe in my hand to special summon it, to then use his vet, and he goes, Veiler. I was like, what is going on? So I've faced, not only did I get rid of Redoer early, but I faced 2 Draxitopelias, I faced a Veiler and an Imperm. I then go into Gigantic, I'm like, you can't have another one, surely. Attempt to use its effect, and he's like, no, Veiler. So I was like, I've had to play through, this is what makes this deck so crazy though, is even then I've still got a board presence, and I've played through 2 target negates, and double Veiler and an Imperm. So you basically want a card that says you can't target these cards, and then you're living in Dream World. So we still get to go into Spright Elf, because I still have a rank 2, and then it just requires a rank or level 2, and then one other monster. That's why Spright Elf is crazy good as well. Because my opponent controls monsters, I can bring monsters back from the graveyard, which is really, really nice, because that's when I can start bringing back Swap Frogs. I've got a dupe in the grave. Obviously, you've stopped my Swap Frog twice already, but by bringing it back off of the Spright Elf, I can do its effect again and finally get that Ronin Toad into the graveyard. Obviously, by doing so, it's going to unlock the ability for me to get into Totally Awesome. But the biggest issue I've got is I can't get rid of the Draxitopelias. So that's where it kind of becomes a bit of an issue. So I need a monster that can destroy it. So bring out the Toad, or bring out the Ronin Toad in. And then kind of go from here. I can't remember. I don't believe I'm locked into... I don't believe either of us are locked into levels of rank 2s, because he negated the Gigantic. So I should be able to go Zeus, which is exactly what I do. Because, again, I'm pretty much at his opponent. My opponent's used all of their cards. They're top decking. And so am I, in theory. I think might have one more card in hand. And then I've also got the ability to detach and bring the another... frog back from the grave, but we're just going to go Downward, Zeus, and then Zeus to get rid of the Draxitopelias, and I still have a Zeus during my opponent's turn. So, I mean, I could have kept cards around, but there was just nothing to do with Draxitopelias, and then they would just negate my 2 cards next turn anyway, so it had to be done now or never. So we set one, I don't set one, sorry, I hold that in my hand, and then Redoer comes and steals, and he gets a starter as well, so he gets another free draw, as if he needed that. Well, he did need it, but like, he's going to use the effect of that. Let's get rid of Spright, start to draw 1 card. I think this is the issue of both these decks, is once you've kind of burnt through resources, it does get a little bit more difficult. I definitely feel that it's more difficult with the Tearlaments, because they're then like, oh, well, we need to mill. And if you stop that first mill, or they can't get their cards into the graveyard, then becomes more damaging. So obviously he's got a Droplet. I'm going to Zeus to clear that board off in the end phase, because I really don't want to face like whatever it could be. And then kind of move it forward. Now, I believe I've opened up like an evenly matched or something. I do have Ronin in the grave, but I'm trying to save it because I don't want to just burn it back. Yes, I could do it and bring back, or what I should have done, I do it a turn late anyway, because I was just thinking about the damage, is I should have brought back the Ronin Totem by banishing the swap. and then gone into Spright Elf, and then Spright Elf can bring back blue, and then blue starts to chain all over again because it will get me Jet. Jet can then summon itself. Jet would then get me starter. I can overlay Jet and blue and go into Gigantic. Gigantic can then summon out a Swap Frog. Swap Frog can then use a Foolish Barrel to send itself another copy of itself from the deck, and then I can use Ronin Toadin again. Like, there's just so many more options to kind of build that board, and that's just a little bit of inexperience. As I probably should have done it the previous turn because I was kind of risking it of what he had. Now, the reason I don't do it now is if he's sitting on a Veiler or anything, a Veiler or an Imperm, it will turn off the Jet straight away. So I did the damage first with Zeus, and then obviously bring back the Ronin Toadin with the Zeus, go into Spright Elf, use Spright Elf's effect. Obviously, it can't bring back any of the ranks or links because my opponent doesn't control a monster. And he's got... Oh, that's the one that when your opponent activates a monster effect, it special summons itself and then excavates or mills the top 3 cards. I'm like, alright, well, it's not going to negate me, so sure. So he resolves that, and then it's all about the mills. This is where it all becomes a little bit luck based with a deck like this. It's like, if you get bad mills, nothing happens. If you get good mills, you're in dreamland. So he got a beast, a Veiler, and an Ash. So he's going to get a draw, but he didn't get the ability to fusion summon. So I get the special summon back the blue. Blue's effect then resolves to attempt to search out Jet. And then, well, it could be another one. If I wanted to, I could go for red or carrot if I'm worried about a monster effect. But Jet's going to get me starter, or it can even get me the... And the reason I put it to the zones that Elf points to is cards that Elf points to can't be targeted, which is really, really important, especially as you saw as the game progressed with blimmin' Imperms and Veilers and Dracus Depelias. So it's absolutely mental. So we get the starter, activate the starter. This is obviously going to get me red, and I suppose this kind of protects me from more monster effects. So as you can see in his hand from this camera view, he's got another one of the same Tearlament, so he'll have to wait for me to activate a monster effect during his turn, which I will more than likely be doing. So we bring out red. I can't remember if I've gone through all of my copies. I can't have done. I'm pretty sure there's still a red and a blue left. So we'll go for Gigantic. I tend to use Gigantic's effect. He's like, he just trolls me here. So I think he's got a spell that he drew off of Beast. And he's got nothing else to stop the Gigantic. I don't know why I've detached his cost, because like we saw in the last one, you don't detach his cost. So summon out a Swap Frog. Swap Frog sends a Swap Frog. And then this is pretty much how you can build up from this point. Like, this is absolutely crazy. Just because it has Graveyard Recursion, it's mad. So bring back the Ronin, overlay the Ronin with the swap, go into Totally Awesome, put it to the zone that Spright Elf points to, so it can't be targeted by an Imperm or a Veiler if he tries to turn it off the next turn. Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. Pass that turn, I've got that negate, plus Elf gives me the ability to have a second negate as well if I want it. So yeah, it's really, really nice. I know he's got a spell, so, well, I don't know in the game that he has a spell. We know in the video he does. So he's got Rotor, which is obviously going to get him his Rhino Heart. Believe it or not, Rhino Heart is a warrior. And the other 3 Tearlaments are Aquas. I quite like the idea of playing Reasoning in this deck. I mean, you probably don't want to be playing it if you've already successfully resolved stuff. But for example, in this one, a top deck of a Reasoning, if your opponent calls it right, okay, sure, it goes to the graveyard, you'll probably trigger an effect. If they call it wrong, you'll get to summon it. So, I mean, it still gives you a lot to play around with. So, with this poly, obviously, the predicament I'm now in, I know that he's got a Rhino Heart because he's just searched it. If the poly resolves, he'll get the effects in the graveyard to trigger stuff. So, obviously, I want to Totally Awesome this. And then I've got to be careful because then the Elf will then allow me to bring the Toad back. So, it's trying to control that. The fact that Toad isn't a hard one per turn is unreal, but we rock with it. A little bit of thinking and deliberation over this, but we're definitely going to Toad it. He activates another one, which will let it summon itself. And then I use red. Now, this is very, very important as well. So red's effect is you contribute another level 2 or rank 2 or link 2 monster to negate a monster effect. If you tribute a rank 2 or a link 2, you can destroy it. I choose obviously not to destroy it because by destroying that monster, it will trigger its effect. So it'd be completely redundant to be doing that. Obviously, Rob's put it into the graveyard assuming that it's a mandatory, if you get rid of a rank, you automatically destroy it. And I was like, no. It's a you can. I don't want to destroy that. You keep that. You can keep that in hand. It's a hard once per turn. It's been negated with Toad. So I'm not really threatened by it. So I was just like, you can. And I choose not to. I don't want to. That would just be silly of me. I love how these two decks came out at the exact same time. It's like Konami planned, and Exo Sisters got the card that they needed as well. It's like they planned for these to come out at the same time, just to kind of like counteract each other. So yeah. We then normal summon the Reinhardt. Reinhardt's effect on summon will Foolish Burial. And by doing so, that's going to give him the ability to trigger another effect. And then by doing so, he sends the Meryl. The Meryl will then trigger to Fusion Summon, and then that's where I can Toad it and negate it. Because they're two different levels on the board as well, he's not going to be able to fuse with it or anything like that. If I Toaded the Reinhardt, it would get destroyed, and if he had because he had a monster in hand, he could bring it back. I foolishly forgot that Elf is a 1400, so he could just punch over the Elf. I was like, that's a little bit annoying. But rather that they punch over the Elf than the Toad. And he can't get past Red because Red is a big boy. And then this is where it gets really grindy. And this is an issue that I see that Sprights might have. Yes, you can recycle waters with your... Yeah, disgusting, I know, missed in mine. I didn't build this deck. Me and Rob, after the duel, both said to Aiden, this is your fault. Like, this deck does not need Mist in Mine. And he goes into Cross Sheet to get rid of the Mist in Mine, and I'm like, what? But yeah, I mean, Cross Sheet makes complete sense in this deck. So Mist in Mine goes, which is fine. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what I was drawing on this one, but I've pretty much gone through both. 2 Swap Frogs are banished. I've got a Ronin in the grave of a Swap Frog, so I'm going to bring back the Ronin and make a rank 2. But I've already gone through 2 Gigantics. I've already gone through... and then whatever I've banished. And this is where the grind game sucks after a pot of Prosperity as well. Is... yeah, I've banished like a couple of cards that I probably wouldn't need in this matchup, which is absolutely fine, but... the extra deck is getting mighty thin, and when I keep drawing Prosperities, I'm like, what can I go into? Like, I've gone through Zeus, I've gone through Gigantics, I've gone through the Elves, I've gone through Downward, I've gone through Sky Cavalry. It's like, where else am I supposed to be going for this? I've got like Cat Shot left. I've got, I think one of them's like the Spirit, but they're just routes to get into Zeus. Like, rank 2s aren't exactly known for their strength. So yeah, there's a couple of different options. I mean, I know people were playing the Jin as well. I think it's like number 90, not 90, like 60 something, I believe, or 75. I can't remember it off the top of my head. It might even be 72. I'm just trying to recall what it is. But yeah, it's another rank 2, and I believe it gives you a bit of protection. So I kind of have to pass it there. I've got a Ronin with a decent booty, and then I've got the other one. It's going to trigger the normal summon this of the Meryl, and this is going to mill an Impermanent Ash and the Chiron. Chiron's going to get the ability to pretty much fuse back. And then I use red to tribute that and negate it, so he doesn't get the fusion. Oh no, he's got a droplet! No! That's sad. Obviously, droplets will not trigger the Tearlaments because they're sent via cost, not effect. So keep that in mind as well. These are all little details that you'll need to kind of be wary of when you're playing with this deck and against this deck. There will be little things that a lot of people that are inexperienced with the deck as well will miss. So yeah, just be aware of it. And then this is how easy it is. Once one of their effects does go through, they can start to pretty much go off. So and then we're pretty much playing the grind game now. As you see in this deck, there's Beaver Warriors, Nimble Beavers, sorry, Beaver Warriors, lol. And we haven't even seen them yet. It's like, yo, where are all my starters? Like, all my swaps are in the grave. I've deck finned already. Where is everything I need to kind of take this up a level? And we're still waiting for it. So, I mean, it was good. Like the first time was really, really cool because you got to see how the sprites can play through stuff, which I think is really, really important. But yeah, so he's now going to go into a Winda. So a Dark Monster plus Beast gives him into the Winda. But it's like, hang on a minute, bro. You've got to use the monster. So again, this is another little tip that you've got to remember with the Tearlaments. So you're going to need to keep a track of the levels for the sprites. And you've got to keep an eye on the materials used for the Tearlament summons. So he has to use the Tearlament monster and Beast in order to make Winda, not Draxtapelia. Obviously, the only reason he was using Draxtapelia was to try and recycle some of his resources, which is really, really important. So yeah, he can get past Winda can get past my defense monster. It's all about trying not to die this turn. But I feel like I'm just so burnt of resource that it's going to be tough. Like I haven't got a Zeus to clear a board. I haven't got anything too major, and then being locked under Winda can be quite painful as well. So just going to continue to see where this one goes. The board's pretty impressive. I think there's a bit of thinking going on because, like I said, both of us are a little bit new to this. So it's just trying to get the grasp of the decks themselves and kind of see what they can do and what their limits are. So you can see that resource management is definitely going to be in the Tearlament's interest. And with the sprites, you kind of need to... You're using rank 2s to try and finish a game off, which is always going to be slightly difficult because, you know... anyway, so he makes the Kaleido Heart, and the Kaleido Heart when it's summoned or when a monster is returned to the deck through the Tearlament's effect, he gets to spin a card. So obviously this is full-on game and pretty much maximum damage. I'm like, look at this, I've got Dark Ruler, Double Evenly, and then a Pot of Prosperity, which had all by this point become quite irrelevant. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pretty much break it there. Obviously that is full on damage. OTK finished it off. So it's a bit of a grind game. You can see that there's a lot of back and forth with the decks. But you'll see as I go through this, like there was 6 banished. I only had 1 left, and then there was the rest in the graveyard. So the resource of Sprights is kind of, yeah, you need to be pretty careful on that. I probably should have finished the game off a little bit sooner, but that's where you got to be careful as well, because Zeus will trigger the effects of the Tearlaments, and then it's all about trying to remember that when stuff is sent via card effects, they're all going to trigger. So if the mills are good, great, the deck of Tearlaments will be absolutely amazing, but because at the moment, they've only got, I mean, it's still amazing that when you mill 3, there's still a chance you won't hit anything that's going to trigger, and then that's only going to increase the more that you... use effects that you've already done. So if you start using effects of like your Tearlament's monster and then you mill the same one, you're not going to be able to get its effect like to kind of spill back. So here's going to be one of these examples. So Rhino Heart is the lucky one. So like when you see Ash and then you see Interfuse, you're like, oh no, this is going to end badly. And then you see Rhino Heart as the last card, you're like, whoo whoo, finally. And then this is, I love this. This is such a cool play. So this is going to be such a generic play to make anyway, but Rhino Heart sends a Tearlament from the hand. It will then trigger Chainlink 1, the Tearlament, Chainlink 2, the Rhino Heart. Rhino Heart gets banished when it leaves the field, so it won't spin back to the deck. But what it does is you use Rhino Heart and the Tearlament that it's sent from hand to get into a Kick Kalos. And then on the new chain, you'll get the Kick Kalos effect and the effect of the Tearlament that Rhino Heart sent. So again, he gets another fuse and a search. So he gets to go straight into a Draxtapelia. And then, again, keep in mind, this is all pretty much come off of 1 card and a discard off of the Rhino Heart. He's going to be able to get the trap card, which can either be a target negate or it can be a target Book a Moon. So really, really important, both those cards, because, especially in Sprights as well, if you Book a Moon a monster, they then don't control a level 2. So they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And the best one to stop is their normal summon. So their normal summon is ideally going to be the one that gets everything going. They don't really play a level 2 at the moment. that just special summons themselves for free. Like, if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, special summon it. Or if you control no monsters, special summon it. Like, that kind of level. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well. It looks like he's going to spin back King of the Swamp and the Merrill that was sent off of the Kit Kalos to fuse, meaning that he's probably already opened up the trap, and he goes into... You can't go into Winda. What are you doing? Put that back. Because... So I catch this a little bit late, but the Winda shouldn't be on the board. It should be... He misplayed. It should have been like Millennium Eyes, because King of the Swamp cannot become a Shadow monster. It can become something that is listed on the card. So... I would still play the Dark Ruler. We catch it in a minute. So both of us has kind of switched off on this. So here we go. This is where he catches it. That it can't be Winda. It has to be another monster. It doesn't matter because it will still get Dark Rulered. So he went for Kaliga instead, which is just as oppressive. Because King of the Swamp can be added to the Invoker, but it can't be a Shadow monster. I normal summon the Swap Frog, and it would already Foolish Burial regardless. But the thing is, if you Book of Moon this Swap Frog now, I've got nothing. I've got nothing that can start chaining. I've got nothing that can keep summoning. So, and the thing with the Sprights is they just summon themselves. They're not activated effects in the hands. So it's just like, I control level 2. Special summon. So as soon as he's done that, he knows he's messed up because he should have Book of Moon the first one. Now that I've got a face up level 2 on the board, I can just go on for days. Like, unless he was going to Book of Moon both these monsters, I was going to keep on going. So he decides to droplet, send in the Kaliga. I then just special summon down Jet. I already had it in the hand anyway. And yeah, at this point, it's just too late for him to pretty much do anything. I'm going to be able to build my board. Draco's Belly is turned off, so I don't have to worry about level manipulation. If I had a water and monster in the hand, I could have brought it back. And then this is where it's like, I bet that's the trap card, because you were talking about it and thinking about it. You should have Book of Mooned the Swap Frog, because you stop that, Blue doesn't come out, Jet doesn't come out. It's pretty much game over, for me anyway. So that again, that's inexperience, and that's just learning the matchups. But that again, that's something that you will now learn from this duel. Of if you've got that trap card that can Book a Moon, or heck, if you're playing a rogue deck that has Book a Moon, if you Book a Moon the normal monster, like the normal summon, it doesn't matter if Swap Frog sends one. If your opponent can't get another one to the graveyard, it's done and dusted. And the only other card they would have to open is they'd have to open up Spright Starter. Now, obviously, if they've got Spright Starter, there's not really a lot you can do unless you've got Ash on top of that. But keep that in mind. Like, usually, if they start off with a normal summon, they may, Book a Moon in it would not be the end of the world. So I was able to resolve Jet. Jet gets me the Spright Starter. And then from this point on, you can pretty much kind of go off. We need to, I can link to, and the reason that you can link to is you go into Elf, and the reason this is important is obviously learning from game 1. If he's got Imperms, if he's got Veilers, I can protect all my stuff so it can't be targeted, and it also means that he can't activate that trap card to target my Gigantic on summon, and then if he targets my Gigantic on summon and Book of Moons it, then it just sits there doing nothing. So as long as I'm putting it to these zones, he can't target them, which is really important. So he sends Swap Frog. That then means that I've got Dupe from Totally Awesome online. I've got the Gigantic. I was like, you can't target it because I've got Elf to it. And he's like, Book of Moon that instead? I was like, no. Nice try though. So again, that's another thing that you need to be aware of with Sprights. If they do it pointing to stuff, hold your hand advantage or hold the knowledge. You don't want to be dropping Veilers left, right, and centre. Make sure you know exactly what's going on. So we detach the swap. We get to summon any level 2 from the deck. Again, it's entirely up to you what you want to go for. Red would be live. Carrot would be live if I'm worried about the back row. You've also got to remember that because I've successfully activated the Gigantic, I'm locked out. And so is my opponent, actually, which is really important. So when I send their stuff to the graveyard, he can't fusion summon. Both of us are locked out of summoning level 2s of high or higher. I could go for a Swap Frog, but there's nothing to send off the Swap Frog apart from the dupe. So we summon out Red, just because Red gives me a bit of protection if I want it, or I can just link it off anyway. It's just additional fodder. To kind of work it from there. Like I said, I've got Toad engraved because I've got 2 swaps and a Ronin. So I just need to make sure that if I've got to make sure that I keep 2 on the board. Elf hasn't used its effect either, so Elf can actually bring back a Toad from the graveyard, or because my opponent controls a monster, I could bring back a Rank or a Link as well. So there's definitely a lot of options, which is absolutely crazy with this deck. It just has so much. with the Toad engine. So again, I wouldn't be massively surprised if it does, if the Toad engine does get hit in one way or another. But yeah, that's just, again, that's for future Yu-Gi-Oh to deal with. Let's deal with modern Yu-Gi-Oh, and it's not looking that fun. So yeah, it's just kind of assessing the options you've got. Obviously, like I said, I've got the access to Totally Awesome, but I don't want it to be Book of Moon, so I need to clear a zone out. Yeah, and it's just finding the right play to make. Elf's got to play. Ronin in the graveyard's got to play. So yeah, this is just getting experience with the deck. This is like the first time both me and Rob are physically playing with the decks. So it's a learning experience. It's trying to figure out the do's and don'ts of the deck, and kind of where they can go and where they can take us. So the thing is, both these decks are multi-hand traps. Like, unless you're playing the obscure hand traps of D-Shifter. And it's also interesting that what stops Sprights very easily in the form of Dark Rule and No More doesn't hurt the Tearlaments as much if they've got the hand trap that can summon and mill, and as soon as they're sent to the graveyard, they'll just float into more or new fusion monsters. I made a bit of a mistake here because I went into the Sky Cavalry. I still needed to go into it because, again, I'm at this position where unless I make the Gigantic with Spright Elf, it's not going to be strong enough to deal with the Dracus Depelia. So I'm going to make it use this effect to spin back the Dracus Depelia. It's the only other card you've got. Gigantic kills the Merrill, and then Elf attacks directly for like 1400. So now it's like, do I go into a Lynx? Do I just wall up with the thing? I need to get... I've got Ronin in the graveyard. Like I said, I've got Elf as well. The issue is that both my zones are being taken up at the moment. So if I make Toad, he can technically Book a Moon it with the trap card, which is something obviously you don't want to happen. But that's something to go on. We were talking about, like, if it locked you into rank 2s or lowers, you could in theory go into Utopic Draco Future. So did I already use the Elf? Maybe I missed it. Maybe I can't remember if I already used the Elf. Maybe that was the reason why I didn't bring back a Toad, because I probably should have done, and then brought back the Ronin, and then I could have made Totally Awesome. So I don't know why I haven't done that. That's a weird play. Might be a mistake on my behalf. And then he just kind of scoops it, because from that point, like, there's nothing you can do. Like, that's the worst one to have, because it doesn't have anything on normal summon. It only triggers like when it's specialed via its own effect. Anyway, we do go into a game 3, but we're currently sitting on the clock at about 32-ish minutes, and game 3 was just a boring grind. Like, Rob built his board, I activated Mystic Mine, and then we just went back and forth for a while of time. Because we weren't using side decks, Rob couldn't put in his back row hay, I couldn't put in my, like, outs to Tearlaments. So yeah, I will save you the pain of that game, and move it on until the next one. Anyway, I hope you've learned a lot from both the decks and the way they play. We certainly did. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer them, whether it is relating to the Tearlaments, the Sprights, or if you just want general questions about Yu-Gi-Oh, let me know and we'll go from there. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe. And of course, happy dueling.